A young errand boy is suddenly accused of stealing a priceless scroll from the Chinese Empire. Instead of accepting the accusation, the boy decides to investigate the theft himself, relying on his remarkable intelligence. In a short time, he proves that he is not the thief and presents a brilliant deduction about the case. His reasoning immediately impresses everyone, including a Chinese princess who asks him to continue investigating the mystery.
The thief was here at 6 minutes past 10.
How can you possibly know that?
Because when he climbed down from the window, he knocked this off.
The clue's in the clock.
But what begins as a simple theft quickly spirals into something much bigger. The missing scroll turns out to be the starting point of a chain of complicated cases filled with intrigue and hidden motives. Before long, the young errand boy finds himself caught in a massive scandal that not only shakes his own family, but also threatens the lives of innocent people. The story begins with the young Sherlock waking up from a nightmare about his sister, who died in a tragic accident when they were children.
You need to hide your intent.
Not long after, Sherlock gets into a fight with a large prisoner, and his older brother Mycroft arrives to secure his release. Mycroft knows Sherlock can be troublesome, but he also knows his brother is not a criminal. However, Sherlock deliberately provokes the judge in court. Because of this reckless behavior, a sentence that should have been only 2 months is extended to 6. Once they return home, Mycroft tells Sherlock that he has arranged a place for him at Oxford University. Since Mycroft will also be working there temporarily, he plans to keep a close eye on his younger brother. Before leaving for Oxford, Sherlock visits his mother Cordelia, who is being treated in a mental hospital. Cordelia tells him she often hears a strange buzzing sound behind the walls, and she believes someone might be secretly listening to her. Sherlock, knowing his mother's fragile mental state, does not take the claim seriously. Instead, he reassures her that he will visit more often. When Sherlock finally arrives at Oxford, he assumes he will be studying there as a student. To his surprise, Mycroft has arranged something very different. Instead of enrolling him as a student, Sherlock is placed as an errand boy responsible for cleaning the campus and assisting the staff and professors. Feeling completely deceived, Sherlock demands an explanation. Mycroft simply walks away, leaving him behind. And this is where young Sherlock's real story begins. Elsewhere, a group of bandits ambushes a carriage carrying a Chinese princess named Xuan. Their goal is to steal a priceless scroll that once belonged to a former Chinese emperor. During the attack, they kill the princess's companion and abduct her for ransom. But while they travel through the forest, Xuan fights back. She manages to take down one of the bandits and regain control of the scroll. Afterwards, she calmly returns to the same carriage and continues her journey to Oxford. Back at the university, Sherlock goes about his duties as an errand boy while secretly educating himself. He spends much of his free time reading in the library, constantly expanding his knowledge. One day, while cleaning the desk of a professor named Thompson, Sherlock is suddenly scolded and warned not to touch anything on the desk. In that brief moment, Sherlock notices that Thompson has recently published a book. Curious, he asks for permission to borrow it because he wants to study the material. After Sherlock leaves the room, Thompson takes out a letter that Sherlock nearly saw and quickly locks it away in a cabinet. Not long after, Sherlock is asked to deliver Xuan's belongings to her room. That is where he finally meets the princess. Xuan is surprised to hear that a simple errand boy can speak Mandarin so fluently.
一间 Woodside Whitechapel.
Sherlock explains that he enjoys learning all kinds of things, including languages from many different countries. During a banquet held for scholarship recipients, Sherlock deliberately irritates Mycroft by serving the guests with exaggerated enthusiasm. His behavior quickly draws attention. Sir Hodge, the Dean of Oxford, begins to question why someone, with Mycroft's connections in the Foreign Office, has a younger brother working as a simple errand boy. It soon becomes clear that Sherlock is doing this on purpose, almost as if he wants to embarrass Mycroft in front of his superior. Not long after, Sherlock secretly slips into Professor Thompson's arithmetic lecture. Because he has already read Thompson's book, Sherlock is able to answer a difficult question that leaves the actual students completely confused. After the class ends, Sherlock continues studying the complex quintic equation written on the board. At that moment, another student appears. His name is James Moriarty, and within seconds, he solves the equation Sherlock was still working on. The two immediately recognize each other as intellectual equals. It turns out Moriarty has already been observing Sherlock since the banquet. He even notices something others have missed. Sherlock has quietly stolen Sir Hodge's pocket watch. Soon after, Moriarty invites Sherlock to a party. The night quickly turns chaotic when they get into a fight with several other students. Outnumbered, they are forced to escape and hide inside the library. While hiding there, Sherlock shows Moriarty the priceless scroll belonging to Princess Xuan, which has been stored safely inside the library. Moriarty casually suggests that Sherlock could steal the scroll and sell it for money. Sherlock shows no interest in the idea. Instead, he places the scroll back inside a cabinet and locks it. The next morning, everything changes. Sherlock learns that the scroll has been stolen, and he is immediately accused of being the thief. He rushes to Moriarty's room, where Moriarty explains that Sir Hodge has already called the police and suspects both of them. Sherlock quickly seeks out Mycroft and insists that he did not steal the scroll. After that, Sherlock and Moriarty return to the library and notice something suspicious. One of the windows appears to have been broken open. At the same time, Sir Hodge arrives with Princess Xuan and Constable Lestrade, who has been assigned to investigate the case. Sherlock calmly presents his observations. He explains that someone broke into the library during the night. He also defends himself logically, pointing out that if he truly intended to steal the scroll, he would not need to break a window because he already has the key to the library. Another important clue appears in the form of a fallen wall clock that stopped exactly at the time of the incident. The evidence strongly supports Sherlock's claim that he is not the thief.
The thief was here at 6 minutes past 10.
How can you possibly know that?
Because when he climbed down from the window, he knocked this off.
The clue's in the clock.
Impressed by Sherlock's remarkable intelligence, Xuan asks him to personally investigate the case and recover the missing scroll. Sherlock accepts the task without hesitation. With Moriarty's help, Sherlock manages to track the suspected thief to a small restaurant. When the man realizes Sherlock is looking for him, he immediately runs. Sherlock chases him down and corners him inside a warehouse. The thief tries to fight back, but Moriarty arrives just in time to knock him down.
Why don't you ask my chum?
Oh, I think they're sweet.
Sherlock quickly searches the man's bag, expecting to find the scroll. But the scroll is not there. At that moment, Sherlock realizes his initial deduction was wrong. He begins reconsidering the entire situation. Sherlock and Moriarty rush back to the library and take another look at the broken window. This time, Sherlock notices something crucial. The window was actually broken from the inside, then staged to look like it had been broken from outside in order to mislead the police. This leads Sherlock to a new conclusion. The scroll may still be somewhere inside the library. After carefully examining the room again, Sherlock finally discovers where the scroll has been hidden.
Stop.
Moriarty, however, dismisses the discovery as pure coincidence. Even though they have recovered the scroll, Sherlock senses that something is still not right. The cabinet that originally stored the scroll has suddenly disappeared from the scene. Since the police have secured the only visible entrance to the room, Sherlock suspects there must be hidden passages within the building. After inspecting one of the walls, Sherlock and Moriarty finally uncover a concealed door. Behind it lies a long, abandoned corridor that stretches deep beneath the building. As Sherlock and Moriarty move deeper through the hidden corridor, another event is unfolding above them. The professors and scholarship students are gathered at a grand science gala held in honor of Sir Hodge. Soon, Sherlock reaches the end of the tunnel and finally discovers the missing cabinet. But what he finds is far more dangerous than expected. The cabinet has been rigged with a bomb that is set to explode within minutes. At the same time, Sir Hodge is delivering a speech at the gala. Suddenly, Sherlock bursts through a hidden wall behind him. In that tense moment, Moriarty immediately warns everyone about the bomb. Moments later, the explosion goes off.
Stop being so English! There's a bomb!
Fortunately, because Sherlock and Moriarty raise the alarm in time, everyone manages to escape before the blast causes any casualties. Later that night, Sherlock is resting in his room with Moriarty when Xuan unexpectedly arrives to thank him. Sensing that the princess wants to speak with Sherlock privately, Moriarty politely leaves and returns to his own room. Xuan offers to pour Sherlock a drink and even begins tending to the wounds he received earlier. But as the night continues, Sherlock suddenly finds himself drifting back to one of the most painful memories of his life. Before he realizes what is happening, he loses consciousness. The following morning, Sherlock wakes to chaos. Police officers burst into his room and arrest him for the murder of Professor Thompson. According to Constable Lestrade, Thompson was found dead with Sherlock's knife still lodged in his back. Even worse, Thompson's blood has been discovered on Sherlock's shirt and on his face. Sherlock immediately denies the accusation. He insists that he spent the entire evening with Xuan and urges Lestrade to question her to confirm his alibi. Meanwhile, Moriarty tries to defend Sherlock by explaining the situation to Sir Hodge. Instead of helping, Sir Hodge responds by stripping Moriarty of his scholarship and expelling him from Oxford. Not long after, Mycroft visits Sherlock in prison. He informs Sherlock that their father has already been told about the murder accusation. Mycroft firmly believes Sherlock is innocent. He suspects that something far more complicated is happening behind Thompson's death. In fact, Mycroft begins to suspect that Sir Hodge himself might be involved and promises to investigate further. The next day, Moriarty attempts a daring prison escape. Disguised as a laundry worker, he sneaks inside and helps Sherlock slip past the guards. At first, the plan works, but the disguise is soon discovered. A chaotic fight breaks out with the prison guards. Somehow, the two manage to escape and retreat to Moriarty's hideout. While sparring and training together, Sherlock begins carefully reconstructing everything that happened the previous night, starting from the moment Shuan arrived in his room. Moriarty believes Shuan must have drugged Sherlock's drink to knock him unconscious. Sherlock starts connecting the pieces. Slowly, a disturbing conclusion forms in his mind. He believes Shuan is the mastermind behind everything. According to Sherlock's deduction, Shuan intentionally hid the scroll and staged the theft so the library would be sealed off. Once the building was closed, she planted the bomb inside the cabinet and positioned it directly behind the hall where Sir Hodge was hosting the science gala. But even with this theory, Sherlock still lacks the most important piece of the puzzle. He still does not understand why Shuan would murder Professor Thompson or risk everything by planting the bomb in the first place. Elsewhere, Shuan meets a man named Esad Kasgarli inside a church. Esad is clearly irritated because Sherlock's involvement has nearly ruined their plan. Still, Shuan assures him that she will deal with Sherlock personally. Before leaving, Esad gives her 1 week to finish what they started. It is at this moment that the truth begins to surface. Shuan is revealed to be the one who murdered Professor Thompson, and Thompson is only the beginning. Her real targets are several other professors known as the Apostles. Quietly, she has also been gathering information from Sir Hodge's office to locate the addresses of each of them. Meanwhile, Sherlock and Moriarty continue their investigation by disguising themselves as police officers. Back in Oxford, Sherlock sneaks into Shuan's room hoping to find clues. Instead, he is caught by the princess herself. A fierce fight breaks out between them. In the middle of the struggle, Shuan throws something toward the window, deliberately drawing the attention of nearby officers. Not wanting to be arrested, Sherlock quickly escapes. Before leaving, he manages to grab a partially burned piece of paper from the fireplace. At the edge of the paper is a set of initials they believe belong to Lord Kingsley, Oxford's photographer. Following that lead, they rush to the photography studio. There they learn that a copy of the burned photograph still exists. Moriarty, still posing as a police officer, visits the home of a nobleman who happens to own the photo and successfully steals it. When Sherlock studies the photograph, he immediately recognizes several familiar faces standing beside Professor Thompson. The men in the picture are Professor Roberts, an engineering expert, Professor Enright, a meteorologist, and Professor Malik, a geologist. Sherlock also realizes something important. During the science gala, these 4 professors were seated together at the same table, the table positioned closest to the explosion. From this, Sherlock reaches a chilling conclusion. All 4 professors were the intended targets from the beginning. The only reason they survived was because Sherlock and Moriarty warned everyone before the bomb detonated. Now, Shuan must be planning another way to eliminate them. Knowing the remaining professors are in danger, Moriarty immediately tries to obtain their home addresses. Unfortunately, Oxford's head staff member, Smudgers, refuses to give him any information. Luckily, a younger staff member secretly agrees to help after hearing about the threat against the professors. Elsewhere, Professor Roberts is peacefully reading at home when an errand boy arrives to deliver food. With no reason to suspect anything, Roberts lets the boy inside. What he does not realize is that the errand boy is actually Shuan in disguise. Not long after, Sherlock and Moriarty arrive at the house, but they are too late. Roberts has already been killed. Furious at himself for failing to stop the murder, Sherlock becomes even more determined to prevent the remaining professors from suffering the same fate. At this point, the story briefly shifts to the past. It reveals Shuan returning to her village only to discover that her parents and many villagers have died suddenly under mysterious circumstances. The loss leaves her devastated and fuels her desire for revenge. Back in the present, Sherlock and Moriarty manage to evade the police and secretly enter Professor Enright's house. Inside, they uncover a shocking piece of information. The four professors were all involved in a secret project in China's Gansu province, a region famous for its gold and mineral mining. The project was led by none other than Sir Hodge, who became incredibly wealthy through those mining operations. While examining the room, Sherlock notices something strange. 13 glasses are arranged on the table in different sizes, each filled to a different level. Sherlock believes the arrangement is deliberate, as if Enright carefully positioned the glasses and utensils to represent something important. At the same time, Moriarty discovers another clue. A student named Prudence has been visiting Professor Enright every night. Since Moriarty already knows her, he decides she may be the key to finding out where Enright is hiding now. Meanwhile, Mycroft secretly follows Sir Hodge to the Foreign Office, hoping to uncover more about the mysterious project Hodge has been involved in. He nearly discovers something important, but before he can gather enough information, Sir Hodge catches him. As punishment, Mycroft is stripped of his position and demoted to the humiliating role of an errand boy. Later that night, Sherlock and Moriarty meet with Prudence. She explains that she and Professor Enright have been working on a project studying how sound travels at night. As soon as Sherlock hears this, something clicks in his mind. He realizes that their experiments must have taken place in bell towers. The strange arrangement of glasses and utensils they found earlier was not random at all. It was actually a map representing the locations of bell towers across London. Sherlock quickly concludes that Enright must be hiding in one of them. But unknown to them, Sean has been secretly following their investigation and has already learned where Enright is hiding. Sherlock and Moriarty rush to the bell tower, but Sean arrives first. Without hesitation, she throws Enright from the top, killing him instantly. As she tries to escape by jumping from the tower, Sherlock manages to grab her hand and attempts to pull her back. Sean slips out of his grasp by intentionally letting her glove fall off. She lands safely and escapes, leaving Sherlock frustrated after losing to her once again. When Sherlock examines the glove she left behind, he finds a clothing store label sewn inside. The next day, Sherlock and Moriarty visit the store. The owner remembers a young woman who came in for a fitting 2 weeks earlier. This detail immediately confuses Sherlock. Sean only arrived in Oxford a few days ago, which means she could not possibly have visited the shop 2 weeks earlier. Elsewhere, Sean meets with Esad again to report what has happened. Unexpectedly, Esad orders her to abandon the mission and return to her village, canceling the plan to assassinate Professor Malik. Sean refuses without hesitation. Malik was the chief architect of the secret project and the man responsible for the deaths of her parents and the villagers. Esad responds with a threat. If she refuses to follow his orders, he will kill her himself. He even hands her a train ticket to London. Instead of going to the train station, Sean heads straight to a telegraph office and sends a message to someone, asking them to come to Oxford immediately. That night, Sherlock meets with Mycroft and shares everything he has learned about Sean. He explains that she is responsible for the murders of the professors, although he still does not fully understand her motive. Mycroft then brings Sherlock to meet a man named Mr. Hornsby, who accompanied Sean during her journey from Dover to Oxford. Hornsby explains that their carriage was attacked by bandits along the way. During the attack, the bandits killed the princess's companion and kidnapped her. However, Sherlock quickly notices something strange in the story. The bandits supposedly smashed Hornsby's glasses, even though Hornsby has extremely poor eyesight. If his glasses were truly broken, he would not have been able to see anything clearly.
How many fingers is he holding up? 3? Oh, dear Lord.
This detail reveals the truth. The bandit attack was staged. The stolen scroll was only part of a larger plan. Sean used the chaos to switch places with the real princess so she could travel to Oxford and carry out the murders herself. Not long after, Mycroft confronts Sir Hodge, who is holding a meeting with the Foreign Secretary. Mycroft explains that the person behind the killings is Xuan, a young woman who has been impersonating the Chinese princess. After hearing Mycroft's explanation, the Foreign Secretary finally believes him. Together, they agree on a plan to capture Xuan by using Professor Malik as bait. The police are immediately assigned to guard Professor Malik's residence, while Sherlock and the others wait inside the house as part of the trap. Around midnight, gunshots suddenly ring out from outside. The officers rush to respond, but it quickly becomes clear that the shots were only a distraction meant to lure them away. Xuan has already anticipated the plan. Using the confusion, she manages to slip into the house unnoticed. However, Sherlock has also prepared for this possibility. He intercepts her and corners her inside the building. As Sherlock confronts her and demands to know why she has been killing the professors, Xuan suddenly repeats a strange phrase. It is the same phrase Cordelia often says during Sherlock's visits to the mental hospital.
There's a man with a bird's claw. He's coming back for me.
There's a man with a bird claw, and he's coming back for me.
Sherlock is stunned. He demands to know how she could possibly know his mother's words. Before Xuan can explain anything, the police storm in and arrest her, taking her straight to prison. The moment Xuan is taken away, Sherlock rushes to see his mother. He asks her about the mysterious man with a bird claw who she has long claimed is stalking her. Cordelia insists she never told anyone about that man, but she is convinced someone has been watching her from behind the walls. Sherlock decides to investigate the walls himself. To his surprise, he actually hears a faint buzzing sound coming from inside the wall, just as his mother has always described. When Sherlock breaks through the wall, he discovers a hidden listening device that has been secretly recording everything Cordelia has said. Realizing his mother has been under surveillance the entire time, Sherlock immediately decides to take her away from the hospital. Their escape does not go unnoticed. The hospital staff attempt to stop them, but Sherlock manages to flee with his mother after stealing a horse carriage.
Yes.
Instead of hiding somewhere new, Sherlock brings her back to the abandoned Holmes family estate, a place they have not visited for many years. Returning there triggers painful memories for Cordelia. She is reminded of the night her young daughter died in a tragic accident. The trauma overwhelms her, and in a moment of despair, she nearly throws herself into the river. Sherlock quickly saves her and brings her back home. Soon afterward, Dr. Maltby arrives to examine Cordelia and gives her medicine to help stabilize her condition. Meanwhile, Sherlock cannot stop thinking about the mysterious man with the bird claw who has been haunting his mother's fears. At first, he has no clear lead and feels completely stuck. But after carefully reviewing everything again, a sudden memory comes back to him. Professor Malik carries a cane with a bird claw design at the top. Sherlock immediately rushes to tell Mycroft about this discovery. Unfortunately, Mycroft dismisses the idea, assuming their mother has simply been rambling. Moriarty, however, notices something suspicious. Professor Malik has suddenly disappeared, even though Xuan has already been arrested and should no longer pose a threat. That strange timing raises serious questions. Sherlock begins to suspect that Malik may somehow be connected to both the murders in Oxford and the surveillance of his mother. Determined to uncover the truth, Sherlock visits Xuan in prison. During their conversation, Xuan reveals something unexpected. She once encountered Malik at a safe house and saw that he had been recording Sherlock's mother. At the time, she did not recognize him clearly, but she distinctly remembers the cane with the bird claw handle. Xuan then proposes an unusual alliance. She suggests that she and Sherlock work together to find Professor Malik, even though their goals are very different. Sherlock initially refuses, but the mystery surrounding Malik and his connection to Cordelia becomes impossible to ignore. Eventually, Sherlock brings the idea to Sir Hodge and proposes a joint operation involving Xuan. Sir Hodge rejects the suggestion immediately. Refusing to give up, Sherlock presents an important detail. During the science gala, Professor Malik quietly left the table just moments before the explosion occurred, almost as if he already knew the bomb was about to detonate. Hearing this suddenly jogs Sir Hodge's memory. He recalls seeing Malik leave during the speech. That detail changes everything. Sir Hodge finally begins to suspect that Malik may have betrayed them. With that realization, Sir Hodge agrees to Sherlock's plan. Together, they organize a raid on the safe house, with Xuan assisting in the operation. When they arrive, they first have to fight off a thug guarding the location. After the struggle, they finally discover the real Chinese princess being held captive inside. Although the real princess has never met Professor Malik, she provides an important clue. The men who held her prisoner mentioned a location connected to Malik, giving Sherlock and the others their next lead. In another room of the safe house, Sherlock discovers something disturbing. Hidden there are recordings of his mother's voice, recordings that Professor Malik has secretly been collecting. Among the materials, Sherlock also finds a clue pointing to a lawyer named Lawson, who had once visited Cordelia. Just as Sherlock prepares to examine the recordings more closely, the cylinder containing the conversation has already been sabotaged. Someone has made sure that whatever was discussed that day will never be heard again. At the same time, Sir Hodge arrives at the location and asks about Xuan. It soon becomes clear that Xuan had guided them to the safe house for a reason. She knew about a secret exit that would allow her to escape. She manages to slip away through that passage, but a police officer chases her down and corners her. Just as the situation looks hopeless, Xuan's ally Mei Li suddenly appears and helps her escape. Meanwhile, Mycroft receives new information about Malik's whereabouts from Edie, Sir Hodge's assistant. Elsewhere, Sherlock and Moriarty travel to Lawson's office, hoping to question him. Instead, they discover that Lawson has been dead for several days. By examining the body, Sherlock concludes that Lawson was involved in a struggle before he was killed. Sherlock also finds a loose button that likely belongs to the killer. Sherlock immediately reports Lawson's death to the police, but before he can continue the investigation, he receives alarming news. Staff from the mental hospital are on their way to take Cordelia back. Sherlock rushes home and arrives just in time to find the hospital staff attempting to drag his mother away. During the confrontation, Sherlock learns something important. The director of the mental hospital already knew that Professor Malik had been secretly recording Cordelia. However, the director claims he was only paid to remain silent and has no idea why Malik was doing it. Around the same time, Sir Hodge finally locates Professor Malik hiding behind an abandoned church. Hodge confronts him and demands to know why he betrayed their partnership. Malik insists that he simply wanted his groundbreaking discoveries to be known by the world. According to him, Sir Hodge had taken credit for work that was never truly his. The argument escalates quickly. Sir Hodge raises his gun and prepares to kill Malik. Moments later, a gunshot echoes through the area. Police rush to the scene and find Sir Hodge lying dead on the ground. Strangely, there is no visible wound and no sign of blood anywhere. Malik has vanished without a trace. Not long after, Sherlock is surprised by the sudden arrival of his father, Silas, who has just returned from Vienna. Silas is confused to see Cordelia at home, since she was supposed to be in the mental hospital. Sherlock explains everything about the listening device they discovered hidden in the walls of her room. For a brief moment, the family sits together and shares dinner, enjoying a rare sense of peace. But Sherlock's sharp mind never truly rests. When he goes to pour a drink for his father, he notices something unusual. One of the buttons on Silas's coat is missing. When Sherlock examines it more closely, he realizes the design is identical to the button he found at Lawson's murder scene. Sherlock immediately shares the discovery with Moriarty. However, Moriarty believes there must be another explanation. He refuses to believe that Sherlock's own father could be responsible for Lawson's death. That night, Sherlock struggles to sleep. His mind is once again haunted by memories of the tragic accident that took his younger sister's life. Deep down, Sherlock still carries the guilt, believing that the tragedy might never have happened if he had simply agreed to play with her that day. The following day, Moriarty visits the home of one of Lawson's former clients. There he learns something interesting about the Married Women's Property Act, a new law that allows married women to own property and gain financial independence from their husbands. It turns out Lawson had been actively seeking married women as clients under this law. According to Moriarty, Lawson likely approached Sherlock's mother because Cordelia is wealthy. Still, Sherlock struggles to see how any of this connects to his father. After all, Silas is a respected scientist who is already very rich. Moriarty suggests that Sherlock should take a closer look at Silas's financial records. Silas has been absent from the family for 12 years, and Sherlock knows very little about what happened during that time. But Sherlock takes the suggestion personally. To him, it sounds like Moriarty is accusing his father of murder. The tension between them quickly escalates into a heated argument, and Sherlock eventually orders Moriarty to leave the house. Not long after, Sherlock happens to catch his father conducting an experiment. Silas places a substance into a glass jar, then releases a butterfly inside. Slowly, the butterfly begins to weaken until it finally dies. The moment unsettles Sherlock deeply. Realizing he cannot ignore his suspicions any longer, Sherlock rushes after Moriarty to apologize and ask for his help again. Together, they decide to secretly investigate Silas. Sherlock sneaks into his father's study and quietly removes the key to the safe from Silas's coat pocket. While Sherlock keeps his parents occupied in the kitchen, Moriarty slips into the study and opens the safe, retrieving Silas's financial records. They almost get caught, but Moriarty manages to hide and return the key to Sherlock before Silas notices anything unusual. Later, back in Sherlock's room, Moriarty explains what he discovered in the documents. Silas has made several extremely successful investments. 4 of his companies went bankrupt during the same year, yet the following year his wealth suddenly skyrocketed. Even more troubling, Moriarty finds the property certificate for the Holmes family estate. The property was originally meant to belong to Mycroft and Sherlock, but Silas quietly changed the legal guardianship and placed everything under his own control. From this discovery, Sherlock reaches a disturbing conclusion. His father may have deliberately placed Cordelia in a mental institution so she would lose her legal right to control the family property, especially after being declared mentally unstable following the death of her daughter. Determined to understand what truly happened, Sherlock goes to speak with his mother. He asks her to help him retrace the events that took place before his sister Beatrice died in that tragic accident. On that day long ago, Sherlock refused to play with Beatrice. Hurt by his rejection, she ran to their father and complained. Silas said something to her that neither Sherlock nor Cordelia ever heard. Moments later, Beatrice ran off into the forest. From that point on, everything spiraled into tragedy. Sherlock now believes his father may have been involved in planning what happened that night. To continue their investigation, Sherlock and Moriarty traveled to a village to meet Mr. Burford, the caretaker who originally discovered Beatrice's body in the river. Unfortunately, Burford has already passed away from illness. Instead, they speak with his daughter, Agatha. Agatha explains that several months after Beatrice's death, Silas paid off all of her father's debts. Her family has always been grateful to the Holmes family for their kindness, especially for Silas's financial help. Even as more pieces of the truth begin to surface, Sherlock still struggles to accept the possibility that his own father could be responsible. Hoping to find another explanation, Sherlock and Moriarty decide to consult Dr. Maltby, the family doctor. But what they learn only deepens the mystery. Dr. Maltby reveals that he was never called to examine Beatrice's body, even though he was the Holmes family's regular physician. Instead, Silas had summoned a doctor from Oxford. The strange part is that Oxford is more than an hour away from their home. That detail convinces Sherlock even more that Beatrice's death was not a tragic accident at all. It may have been something carefully arranged by his own father. Sherlock returns to his mother and carefully retraces the events of that tragic night in his memory. He remembers seeing his father carrying Beatrice's body. At the time, Silas deliberately kept Cordelia at a distance, even though she desperately wanted to see their daughter. Cordelia was overwhelmed with grief, nearly hysterical, while Mr. Burford held her back to prevent her from getting too close to Silas. Soon after, both parents appeared to mourn their daughter together. But Sherlock remembers something very clearly. Beatrice's body was completely covered by a cloth, which meant no one could actually see her face. In reality, Cordelia never saw her daughter's body at all. Silas handled everything himself while Cordelia was left in shock and eventually given sedatives to calm her down. Later that night, Silas returned with medicine for his wife. Sherlock noticed something strange. The medicine Silas brought looked different from the one usually given by Dr. Maltby. Sherlock insisted on giving the medicine to his mother himself. But once Silas left the room, Sherlock quietly slipped the medicine into his pocket instead of giving it to her. That same night, with Moriarty's help, Sherlock secretly digs up Beatrice's grave. When they examine the body inside, Sherlock realizes something shocking. The corpse buried there cannot be his sister. The arm of the body is completely intact, even though Beatrice had suffered a broken arm before the accident that supposedly killed her. At that same moment, Silas enters Sherlock's room and realizes that Sherlock has been investigating him all along. Now convinced that the body in the grave is not his sister, Sherlock confronts his father directly. But Silas quickly turns the situation around. He suggests that Sherlock may be mentally unstable, just like his mother. Silas calmly explains his version of the events from that night and insists that Beatrice truly died. He urges Sherlock to accept her death and move on. For a moment, Sherlock almost believes him.
Why would you bring a doctor all the way from Oxford?
That was your mother's idea!
It was the worst day of our lives.
Then Cordelia suddenly appears and completely contradicts Silas's story. She reveals that she never called any doctor from Oxford and had never even met such a doctor. Having already learned the truth from Moriarty, Cordelia demands an explanation from Silas and even threatens him at gunpoint. But Silas manages to manipulate the situation once again and escapes before anyone can stop him. The following day, Mycroft receives disturbing news. Sir Hodge's official cause of death is listed as drowning. The problem is that Mycroft personally found Hodge's body lying on dry ground. Soon after, Mycroft is summoned by the Foreign Secretary, who demands an explanation for Hodge's death. Instead of providing answers, Mycroft confronts the minister about the government's secret project involving Sir Hodge and Professor Malik. The minister refuses to reveal any details. As a result of his defiance, Mycroft is dismissed from his position at the Foreign Office. Refusing to abandon the investigation, Mycroft seeks out Lestrade and proposes that they work together. By uncovering the truth, they might not only solve the case, but also save their careers. Lestrade agrees, and the two of them begin examining Professor Malik's files at the police station. During their search, they discover information about a man named Gordon, who may be one of Malik's associates. Following the lead, they track Gordon down. He works as a hotel manager and eventually reveals something important. According to him, Professor Malik is currently in Paris. Meanwhile, Cordelia remembers something important about Mr. Burford. He often handled deliveries of hunting supplies for Sherlock's father, and every delivery was carefully recorded in a ledger. When Sherlock and his mother examined the book, they discover that Burford made a delivery to Highgate just one day after Beatrice was declared dead. Sherlock and Cordelia immediately travel to Highgate, where they meet a woman named Mrs. Tilcott. At first, she insists that she has never heard of Beatrice, but after Cordelia presses her further, the truth finally comes out. Beatrice had actually been brought to her house years earlier. Burford told Mrs. Tilcott that the girl came from an orphanage and had no family, so she decided to take Beatrice in and raise her. According to Mrs. Tilcott, Beatrice stayed with her until the age of 14. Then one day she suddenly disappeared, leaving without any explanation. Mrs. Tilcott has not heard from her since. While searching Beatrice's old room, Sherlock notices a preserved butterfly displayed inside. Mrs. Tilcott explains that it was a birthday gift someone once sent to Beatrice, though she never knew who the sender was or where it came from. Sherlock studies the specimen more carefully and traces it back to the only place where such preservation work could have been done. That discovery leads him to the sender's address. At the same time, Xuan and Mei Li secretly follow Isid, hoping to learn more about his plans. Unfortunately, Isid notices them and attacks. A fierce fight breaks out, and during the struggle, Isid manages to overpower Mei Li. Xuan is forced to let him escape in order to save her friend's life. Before he gets away, Mei Li manages to grab something from Esid's coat pocket. The clue reveals that Esid is heading to Paris. Meanwhile, Sherlock and his mother travel to the address connected to the preserved butterfly. To Sherlock's surprise, the location turns out to be one of Silas's offices, a place used for his textile import business. Inside, they uncover another lead, suggesting that Silas has already left for Paris and plans to stay at a hotel called Therese. Their presence does not go unnoticed. One of Silas's men spots them and alerts the police about the break-in. Officers soon arrive at the scene, but Sherlock and the others manage to escape thanks to a herd of cattle that blocks the police and slows their pursuit.
Sherlock, it is rather fun, isn't it?
Before long, Sherlock and his allies arrive in Paris, only to find the city in the middle of a revolution. Streets are filled with chaos, gunfire, and barricades. After navigating through the unrest, they reach the Hotel Therese. A bellboy informs them that Silas has just left for one of the most famous entertainment venues in the city. They rush there and unexpectedly run into Mycroft. He is equally surprised to see them. Mycroft explains that he came to Paris to track down Professor Malik, while Sherlock reveals that they are searching for Silas. Soon they realize that Malik and Silas know each other and had been sitting together with several associates, including Assad. Sherlock and Moriarty quietly follow Silas when he suddenly disappears into a wine storage warehouse. Sherlock quickly notices a hidden door that leads into an underground tunnel. They move through the passage until they finally reach a hidden chamber. Inside, Silas is delivering a speech to a group of powerful government officials. With the help of Professor Malik, Silas has developed an incredibly deadly nerve weapon, one that can kill without leaving any trace. To prove its effectiveness, Silas demonstrates the weapon on a man trapped inside a glass chamber. He then explains that anyone interested in buying the weapon can arrange the deal through Isid at a location known as Two Corners. Sherlock is stunned when he finally sees the true side of his father. The man he once respected is now revealed as someone completely different. Silas is capable of killing an innocent man without hesitation and has even developed a deadly nerve weapon simply to sell it for profit. Just as the demonstration continues, Xuan suddenly appears and shoots the glass chamber. The chaos that follows sends everyone into panic. People scatter in every direction, while Sherlock immediately tries to chase after his father. But before he can reach him, Xuan fires another shot. The bullet accidentally strikes Sherlock instead of Silas. In the confusion, Silas manages to escape. Despite his injury, Sherlock quickly tells Moriarty to go after his father. Meanwhile, Mycroft rushes to help Sherlock and takes him to the nearest hospital, which happens to be located in the middle of a conflict zone. Outside, Moriarty manages to stop Xuan before she can fire another shot at Silas. He reveals something she did not know. Silas is Sherlock's father. Xuan is clearly shocked. She insists that she had no idea and explains that she never meant to shoot Sherlock. Her target had always been Silas. Just as she prepares to leave, a French soldier suddenly appears and tries to kill her. Moriarty reacts instantly and shoots the soldier. The moment leaves him shaken. It is the first time he has ever taken a life. Seeing his shock, Siobhan quickly pulls him away before more soldiers arrive. Eventually, Sherlock receives intensive treatment at the hospital and survives the wound. When he finally regains consciousness, Siobhan visits him and reveals the truth behind everything. She explains that she comes from Gansu province, the same region where Professor Malik and several other scientists carried out their secret research. Her village sat on land rich with rare minerals. Malik exploited those resources to develop his deadly nerve weapon. Before Silas demonstrated the weapon in Paris, Malik had already tested it on the villagers themselves. The entire project had originally been supported by the British government and led by Sir Hodge. But Malik betrayed them all, selling his discovery to the highest bidder. That bidder turned out to be Silas. Siobhan offers to work together with Sherlock to capture him. Cordelia agrees to the alliance, but only under one condition. Siobhan must not kill Silas before they learn the truth about what happened to Beatrice. Knowing that Silas is still somewhere in Paris, Sherlock tries to recall the location mentioned earlier by his father, a place called Two Corners, where buyers can meet, he said. Moriarty returns to the entertainment district to search for clues and eventually finds a matchbox shaped like Napoleon's hat. A performer there explains that the matchbox comes from a restaurant on the outskirts of Paris, a place locals often refer to as Two Corners. Moriarty visits the restaurant and learns that Assad regularly meets potential buyers at a particular table. He also discovers that Assad is scheduled to meet a buyer named Duke Dormond the following day. With this information, Sherlock forms a plan. They will pose as buyers, approach Assad, and lure Silas out into the open. In theory, the plan seems simple, especially with Moriarty and Siobhan helping. But reality proves more complicated. Duke Dormond quickly becomes suspicious of Sherlock, who is pretending to be Assad's assistant. Just as the Duke prepares to leave, Moriarty deliberately bumps into him. In that brief moment, Siobhan steals the money from the Duke's bag and hides it inside a flower pot. She then passes the pot to Cordelia, who approaches Assad while disguised as the Duke's wife. The money immediately grabs Assad's attention. He invites Cordelia to speak with him privately behind the restaurant. Once they are alone, Assad pulls out a gun. From the beginning, he already knew she was not the Duke's wife. Cornered, Cordelia admits the truth. She explains that she represents a wealthy investor from England who is interested in buying the weapon. Assad appears convinced and instructs one of his men to send a telegraph to Silas. A short time later, Cordelia rejoins Sherlock and the others and tells them about the message. They follow Assad's messenger, and Moriarty manages to uncover another crucial piece of information. Silas has already left Paris and is now in Constantinople. Meanwhile, Mycroft travels to the British embassy in Paris to speak with the ambassador and explain everything that has happened. The ambassador relays the situation to the foreign secretary and delivers a clear message to Mycroft. If he wants his former position at the Foreign Office back, he must follow the minister's instructions. Not long after, Sherlock and the others arrive in Constantinople. There they receive help from Emily, a friend of Siobhan, who uses her network of street children to gather information about Silas's location. Unfortunately, one of the boys they trust is secretly working both sides. Silas has already ordered him to bring Sherlock directly to him. Desperate to learn the truth about his sister, Sherlock agrees to meet Silas. When they finally come face to face, Silas appears impressed by Sherlock's intelligence, especially after learning that Sherlock has uncovered the truth about Beatrice. Silas then reveals something shocking. Beatrice is still alive and currently in Constantinople with him, but there is a condition. If Sherlock wants to see her, he must hand Siobhan over to Silas in exchange. With no other option, Sherlock agrees to the deal and quietly begins planning something with Moriarty. The next day, Sherlock meets Silas in the city square and prepares to fulfill the arrangement. Siobhan is stunned when Moriarty suddenly points a gun at her, apparently ready to hand her over. Moriarty claims that everything is part of Sherlock's plan and urges Siobhan to cooperate. At the same time, he reveals something unsettling about himself. After killing the French soldier earlier, he felt a strange sense of excitement, almost as if taking a life brought him pleasure. Meanwhile, Cordelia finally comes face to face with the girl she believes to be Beatrice, and immediately embraces her after years of separation. But the moment does not last long. Cordelia quickly realizes that the young woman standing before her is not the real Beatrice. Elsewhere, Moriarty secretly helps Siobhan by slipping her a grenade. She throws it toward Silas, triggering instant chaos. Gunfire erupts as people scramble for safety. Xuan manages to escape in the confusion, but Sherlock and the others are quickly surrounded by Silas and his men. At that critical moment, Edie suddenly steps forward and reveals a stunning truth. She is the real Beatrice. The story then shifts to the past. When Beatrice was 14 years old, she began questioning the truth about her real parents. Intelligent and curious, she eventually managed to track down Silas on her own. From that moment on, Beatrice chose to live with him and became involved in his illegal operations. As she grew older, Beatrice even volunteered to spy on Sir Hodge, who was deeply involved in a secret British government project. Through her efforts, they learned about the development of a devastating nerve weapon. With that knowledge, they were able to convince Professor Malik to betray Sir Hodge and work with them instead. Back in the present, Beatrice confronts Cordelia and claims that her mother once tried to harm her, which is why she was sent away to a mental institution. In reality, Silas had manipulated Beatrice with lies for years. Sherlock quickly challenges the story and exposes the darker truth about their father, explaining how Silas wanted control over their mother's wealth. But Beatrice refuses to believe him, even as Sherlock insists that neither he nor Cordelia has any reason to deceive her. During dinner, Cordelia tries to convince Beatrice that she never once intended to harm her when she was a child. She insists that everything Beatrice believes about her is a lie. But Silas quickly manipulates the situation, turning the conversation into a heated argument. In the middle of the tension, Mycroft finally reveals something shocking. The Foreign Office assigned him a mission. He was sent to persuade Silas to sell the nerve weapon exclusively to the British government, which was willing to pay more than any other buyer. Hearing this immediately angers Sherlock and Cordelia. They are deeply disappointed that Mycroft chose to side with the government and betray his own family simply to regain his position. After dinner, Sherlock spends some time speaking privately with his father. Silas attempts to persuade Sherlock to join him. He admits that Sherlock is the smartest of all his children and praises his ability to think far ahead and see the bigger picture. Silas believes Sherlock's intelligence could reshape the world. He does not only want Sherlock as an ally, he wants him as his successor and heir. According to Silas, Beatrice is talented, but Sherlock stands on an entirely different level. In Silas's eyes, Sherlock was born to lead and to change the course of history. Sherlock appears to consider the offer. He tells his father that if Silas truly wants his loyalty, he must first tell Beatrice the truth and allow her to leave with their mother. Only then will Sherlock think about joining him. Elsewhere, Beatrice approaches Moriarty with a different strategy. She attempts to charm and manipulate him, hoping to turn him against Sherlock. The following day, Silas and Beatrice prepare to leave for the factory where the nerve weapon is being produced. Meanwhile, Mycroft is sent to a telegraph office to report to the British government about the upcoming sale of the weapon. But once Mycroft arrives at the telegraph office, everything changes. Instead of sending the message, he attacks one of Silas's men and rushes off to find Xuan. He asks for her help to rescue Sherlock and the others. Not long after, Mycroft returns to Silas's residence with Xuan and Emily, both pointing their weapons at the guards outside. At the same time, Sherlock and Moriarty manage to overpower several guards inside and seize their weapons. Their escape attempt quickly turns into a fierce gunfight when Silas's remaining men join the battle. Despite the chaos, Sherlock and his allies manage to defeat the guards and take control of the house. While searching for clues about the location of Silas's factory, Sherlock accidentally discovers a hidden door that leads to a secret office. Inside, they uncover something disturbing. Silas has been using dolls as a cover to smuggle opium and nerve weapons across the world. They also find documents describing the secret research conducted by the professors to perfect the deadly nerve agent. Among the papers is an unfinished equation created by Professor Malik. If completed, it might hold the key to stopping Silas's weapon. Meanwhile, Cordelia manages to discover the exact location of the factory. As everyone prepares to leave, Moriarty quietly slips the unfinished equation into his pocket without anyone noticing. At the same time, Silas and Beatrice are already on their way to the factory. During the journey, Beatrice begins questioning why Silas took her away from home all those years ago. She seems to be slowly reconsidering her mother's words, especially after seeing Silas trying so hard to recruit Sherlock, someone she has never liked. But Silas quickly turns the conversation back against her. He reveals that he knows about the night Beatrice spent with Moriarty, Sherlock's closest friend. With that revelation, he pressures her to stop questioning him and focus instead on their larger plan. Before long, Sherlock and the others finally arrive at the factory. They manage to sneak inside through an abandoned tunnel that leads deep into the facility. After taking down several guards, the group splits up. Xuan, along with Emin and Moriarty, goes after Professor Malik, while Sherlock and his family search for Beatrice. Xuan eventually tracks Malik down. After everything he did to her village, she does not hesitate. She kills him, finally avenging the deaths of her parents and the countless villagers who suffered because of his experiments. Meanwhile, Cordelia manages to find Beatrice. She desperately tries to convince her daughter that she never once intended to harm her. Cordelia reminds her of the happy moments they shared when Beatrice was young, memories filled with love and warmth. For a moment, it seems to work. Beatrice begins to remember those moments, memories that prove her mother truly cared for her. She embraces Cordelia and admits that she believes her. But the moment takes an unexpected turn. Instead of leaving with them, Beatrice leads Sherlock and Cordelia straight to Silas. She reveals that she already knows everything. Beatrice raises her gun at her father, clearly heartbroken. She secretly overheard the conversation between Silas and Sherlock in the garden the night before. Hearing Silas promise everything to Sherlock shattered her. For years, she believed she was the one helping him build his empire, the one who stood beside him through everything. Now she realizes that Silas always intended for Sherlock to replace her. Silas tries to calm her down and explain himself, but Beatrice fires her gun without hesitation. At the same time, Xuan and Emily prepare explosives around the factory, while Moriarty searches desperately for the unfinished equation left behind by Professor Malik. Just as Moriarty finally finds the formula, the explosives detonate. The factory erupts into chaos, forcing everyone to run for their lives. In the confusion, Silas manages to escape on horseback. Xuan immediately rides after him, determined to finish what she started. Sherlock and Beatrice follow close behind, each with their own reason for chasing him. Unlike the others, Sherlock refuses to kill his father. While Xuan and Beatrice are ready to end Silas's life, Sherlock insists that he must face justice and answer for his crimes. Even now, Silas tries to manipulate his son, appealing to the compassion he knows still lives inside Sherlock. But this time, Sherlock refuses to be swayed. Realizing there is no escape left, Silas makes one final decision. Rather than face judgment, he throws himself off a cliff, leaving something behind for Sherlock.
No, stop it. Get up.
No, don't.
Sometime later, Sherlock discovers a clue hidden inside the blood-stained handkerchief his father left behind. It leads him to a secret key concealed within a book. Just as he begins to understand its significance, Mycroft steps in and tells him to put the key back and let everything end. Elsewhere, Moriarty is quietly celebrating his own success. He managed to keep the equation created by Professor Malik. With it, a new nerve weapon could potentially be developed, even though all of Silas's existing weapons were destroyed. At the same time, Moriarty has secretly begun a romantic relationship with Beatrice. They keep it hidden from her family. Moriarty even considers proposing a partnership between them. But before he can say anything, Sherlock suddenly appears. Moriarty quickly tells Beatrice to leave before Sherlock discovers the truth about their relationship. Not long after, Sherlock comes to see Moriarty. By now, Sherlock has already figured out the truth. Moriarty has secretly kept the equation created by Professor Malik. Moriarty does not even try to deny it. Instead, he openly admits it and invites Sherlock to work with him. In his mind, the two of them together could accomplish incredible things. With their intelligence combined, they could reshape the world. But Moriarty's words remind Sherlock of something else. They sound almost identical to the promises his father once made. Sherlock immediately rejects the idea. He has no interest in using his intelligence to pursue power or commit crimes. During that moment, another small detail comes to light. Sherlock has secretly taken the key that was hidden inside the book earlier. When Moriarty asks about it, Sherlock simply gives no answer. And with that quiet mystery left hanging, the story comes to a close. Far away from the chaos, Xuan finally returns home to her village in Gansu province. There, she reunites with Mei Li. The two embrace warmly, sharing a moment of peace after everything they have been through. So the moral of the story is, if your errand boy is too smart, your princess is fake, your dad is evil, and your best friend loves equations a little too much, maybe just stay home and do not touch any mysterious scrolls.